Birth Your Way, Fort Collins. I am thrilled today to have Chelsea and Angela here with Motherhood Untamed.
Hi.
We are so excited to talk to you. They are IBCLCs, both of you.
Yes.
Yep.
And really, I'd love for you both to introduce yourselves. I'm going to start with you, Angela.
I'm Angela. I own Motherhood Untamed, which I started in 2021. I'm a lactation consultant. I also hold my CLC. I just got my licensed massage therapist. I'm a mama of 3. I've lived here, it feels like forever. I'm actually from Wyoming, but I moved here to go to CSU, and I've been here longer than I lived in Wyoming now. So I'm a townie, married to my favorite dude, and I just love babies and families and everything birth world.
Wonderful. So glad you're here. How about you, Chelsea?
I'm Chelsea. I'm also an IBCLC. I am working for Angela. She was so wonderful to take me under her wing. I'm a much more recently coined IBCLC. I'm also a nurse anesthetist, so I've been in the healthcare world for over 20 years now, but more recently in the IBCLC field, and super happy to be here. I moved to Fort Collins in 2024, so I am not a townie. I'm a newbie, but I love it here and see myself being here for a long time and just feel fortunate to get to do this work.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Can I share how we met?
Oh, please do. Yes.
Because she totally slid into my DMs. I have
From Spain.
an accidental Instagram following. It's not like I'm an influencer or anything, but it's bigger than my
She has a
hometown.
huge influence.
And she DM'd me and was like, hey, I'm so-and-so, and I live in Spain. And I was like, okay. And then she went on to say, we really want to move to Fort Collins. I'm like actively working towards getting my IBCLC, and I just want to connect with you because I would love to work with you at some point if that's an option. And then lo and behold, as soon as she sat for her exam, she came back to that message and was like, so I just sat for my exam and I'll have my results in 12 weeks because they make us wait for 12 weeks. And then here we are.
That's amazing.
I think that's kind of fun.
Yeah, no, I think even before I moved here to Fort Collins, I had a newborn. And when I was looking if I need lactation support, you were the first one to pop up. Motherhood Untamed. Yeah, I knew who you were before I moved here.
Yay.
Yeah. Yay. I didn't slide into your DMs though. It turned out I didn't need support.
I
But
know,
I'm so
right?
glad you're here for the community.
Yeah, I love it here. And we just have a really cool birth working community. Like professional community here is awesome.
I totally agree. I'd love to hear what drew you to this work. Tell us what brought you here.
I think most of us, our gateway drug to birth work, lactation included, is motherhood. It's not true for everybody, but for me, I always wanted to be a mom, and becoming a mom was trickier than we thought it was going to be. And then when breastfeeding came along, I was like, it's a natural. My mom breastfed us, like no problem. We had a doula. She helped with latch, like all of this stuff. But then all the extra layers of things of like, why is my baby projectile exorcist style vomiting all over me at least 2 times a day? And we're crying and he's fussy and like, naps 20 minutes on repeat, rinse and repeat every hour. And then I had another baby, and that was like even harder, and she had ties, but she was chubby. And so as far as lactation support, it was like, well, just lean back and help her handle your flow and look at her weight gain. And it's like, but she cries all the time and we're miserable. So for me, my gateway drug was my motherhood experience and the support that I got and the support that I felt was lacking. And so when the pandemic came around and all of us were like, what do we do with ourselves? I was like, well, shoot, we got one life. I'm going to do this thing. And here I am.
And you decided to go for the IBCLC, like the ultimate.
Yeah,
kinda
I think
pathway.
if you're going to do true clinical lactation care, IBCLC is the gold standard. We have a lot more, it's different, right? It's confusing to parents because there's lactation soup when we could go all into that. But yeah, my goal was always to become an IBCLC. I opened my business as a CLC and worked towards, within 2 years, I had my IBCLC, which is a feat if you're not a nurse.
Can you explain at a high level for someone who's not familiar with the different processes?
The different credentials
Yeah,
and
yeah.
whatnot. Okay. There's CLC, which is Certified Lactation Counselor. That's how I started my business. It originally was a 52-hour class. I think it's now around 90, but it's just an online course you can take, and then you do have to take an exam. And then you are a certified lactation counselor. There's some continuing ed requirements. It gives you the base knowledge of lactation and the physiology of milk production and some troubleshooting stuff for the typical struggles that we might see. And on that kind of bracket, there's CBS, which is Certified Breastfeeding Specialist. Same thing. There's all these certified something or other courses that you can take. And it's great for doulas, anybody that wants to do lactation care in addition to their main thing. It helps them with latching and all of that.
Gives them a basic foundation.
Yeah, it gives a
knowledge.
basic
Yeah.
foundation, which is beautiful. And then the IBCLC is International Board Certified Lactation Consultant, and it has lactation education requirements. You have to have at least 95 hours of lactation specific. And then beyond that, you have to have, it depends, there are a couple pathways to get to it. If you're a nurse, you would use your experience with moms and babies and count those hours, but you have to have somewhere from 300 to 1,000 hours working directly with moms and babies before you can even apply for your exam. And so there are a bunch of different ways, and that really is one of the barriers to becoming a lactation consultant, is getting those hours. And that's in a nutshell the various. And even IBCLC to IBCLC, we might have the same foundation of education, but where did we go from there? Like, where did we seek our continuing education courses, and how did we grow in our knowledge base? Because just starting out at that basic foundational knowledge, and I think this is why some people are like, well, why did this IBCLC said this, and this one said this, and these people said this, and we all have the same letters behind our name. And that truly comes down to what is our niche, where's our passion, and what is the education that we've built up outside of just getting the letters behind our name.
Yeah, and thank you for clarifying that.
Yeah.
And just real quickly, you said it was important to you to provide clinical level care.
Yeah.
Can you speak to why that was important?
I just think, and I think Chelsea can attest to this now being 6 months into working here and serving families, is it's so much. I can't imagine trying to do the level of lactation care that I do in a postpartum visit that's 20 minutes as a healthcare provider or a doula, and get my other hat finished. It truly is not something that, in my heart, I believe that you can tack on to something else, because it is its own piece. I'm communicating with your midwives and your pediatricians, and really truly part of the medical team that's holding you up. And I think that's where it kind of differentiates.
Yeah.
It's not just, hey, let's switch your position just a little bit. And, oh, that's amazing. We need all of that support, right? But it goes deeper than that.
Thank you for, explaining all of that. I know before I entered this world, I mean, I didn't know.
No.
Yeah.
I think so many of us just don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, and the varying pathways to be an IBCLC, there's a foundation. I think it's 14 anatomy and physiology and other like healthcare basics leading to a nursing path or other healthcare path, whereas a CLC or a CBS, from my understanding,
I forgot about that
you don't
piece.
have to have that basic foundation. And so if you're trying to provide evidence-based care coming from that background of a stronger science foundation, I think is important from a clinical standpoint for the more evidence-based approach than simple latching basics and things like that.
Yeah.
So that, I think, a significant difference between the IBCLC and there's CEUs that are required, and they all have their place in care, but it does provide an opportunity for more of a strong foundation from just an anatomy and physiology standpoint.
Yeah. Got it. And what brought you down this path?
So similar path in that my own struggles with my daughter. I went to nursing school when I was a baby. I was 18 years old, and I actually went to nursing school to become a midwife, but then realized in nursing school after my labor and delivery rotation, I was just like, I'm so young. I'm my baby. I'm not planning on having babies anytime soon. And I just didn't feel like at that moment that was the right path for me. So I finished nursing school and I went into emergency medicine, and I did that for about 8 years. And then it was time for me to take the next step in my career, and I fell into anesthesia's lap. That's a long story for a different day. So I went back and got my master's in nurse anesthesia. And then several years later, had my own baby, and I was very prepared to just exclusively breastfeed. And my mom was like, I sprayed milk across the room, and it's natural, it's easy, that kind of thing. And that is not how it went for me. I did not spray milk across the room. It was like very challenging. And I sought care of an IBCLC. I went to a prenatal class, and I thought I was so prepared for it. And then in the moment, I felt totally unprepared. And I did have good care I saw 2 different IBCLCs, and I wanted to be able to provide the care that I wish I had in that moment. So while those two women were wonderful. They didn't really give me what I needed in that moment. And years later, I came full circle to realizing that. And then after being in healthcare for 20 years and realizing that healthcare is really sick care in this country, I really wanted the opportunity to do something where I could form relationships and provide more of like a continuity of care. And it wasn't just a one-off thing, especially in anesthesia when we're doing care for surgery. I think I provide excellent care, but I really miss the patient rapport and developing a relationship. And so when I was like, what do I want to do when I grow up? I'm 40 years old. What am I going to be? I thought back and realized the passion, like a kind of full circle moment, brought me back to the birth world and how I could have my space in that world without going the midwifery route. Because at that point I was like, I'm not going back and getting another master's degree. And I'm really passionate about lactation care because of my own experience. And then it's a unique thing. I think I'm the only CRNA. There may be others, but I'm pretty sure I'm the only CRNA, at least in this country, that is also an IBCLC.
In the country?
I think so. I found that out when trying to get credentialed for Medicaid. They were like,
we don't know how to do this.
Yeah,
This before.
nurses, and there's PAs, and there's physicians, and there's all of these categories of people, but nurse anesthetists, they didn't have the taxonomy, which is more alphabet soup, but basically they were like, we've never had a CRNA try and get under us for lactation care. So hopefully I opened the path to that, and maybe other CRNAs will be interested in it. But we are airway experts, and I have advanced knowledge, and I really understand the underlying anatomy. So especially coming under Angela's practice, she in this community is known for those more tricky cases when it is not like every baby has a tongue tie, but when there are oral restrictions present, I am able to come at it from a clinical approach, which is a different approach than Angela but we come to the same thing where I'm like, I've looked in thousands of mouths, and I, not always in babies, but I can tell anatomical variations, and that kind of clinical knowledge is just a different subset. That's what is unique about Chelsea.
Special sauce.
Yeah, it sounds like you two complement each other really well.
We think so.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So your background was in nursing, like nurse anesthetist. And I forgot, what was your background before you came to this?
I quit nursing school a semester and a half in, not even all the way through first year, after I had my undergrad in communication from CSU. I just didn't want to continue to be in school, and I was 20 something and was like, I'm going to go live my best life. And then I did, and I have a not so natural career transition. I was an insurance adjuster. I would be the person to come climb on your roof if there was a hailstorm and let you know what we're going to pay and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And then I was the director of business development and marketing for a roofing company once I had a kid, and did that part-time. So that gives me a lot of my background in growing a business and I helped him grow his business. So when I made my own, I just put that playbook that we had created and turned it towards this. So I'm not an RN, and I come from a background really of communication and of business development and marketing.
I love that, though, because that's a huge trend, I think, with all birth workers, especially on this podcast so far. We all bring our own gifts into birth work. And as you mentioned, our gateway drug often is motherhood.
Yeah.
Brought us here, and we were doing something different before that. But now it brings us home to ourselves in a way, I think, giving birth. But you both bring your backgrounds. So because there's a synchronicity there that I think that our community really benefits from. You bring this really clinical lens, your own personal experience, and you bring, I think communication can be very important. It's very huge. Especially in something that, when people don't have that understanding of their bodies and they're in postpartum and like having this problem, to be able to communicate clearly to them.
And just to be able to care well for people. Communication is it's the root of most of our problems, right? Whether it's marriage or whatever, it's miscommunication is such a hard thing. So having really great communication it hasn't hurt things.
It cannot hurt. So you've got these great backgrounds coming together in this business. Tell me what you offer through Motherhood Untamed. What services are available when people come to you?
Yeah, we've got lactation care, obviously, is what we really do here. So that goes all the way from prenatal education. We've got online courses. A few years ago, we used to consistently host in-person classes, tried to do it at least twice a year, if not 3 times a year. And someday maybe we'll get back into that. I have 3 kids at home, and layering life and all the things that just fell away. But we have that online, all the way from understanding your baby to then having truly a breastfeeding basics foundation. And I have a parenthood prep one too, if you're first time and you're like, what's a budget and what's childcare and what's all of this? So there's like some prenatal education there. And we do prenatal appointments, which
Do a prenatal appointment.
It's so fun talking about, like Chelsea was saying, that relationship with a family, doing your research, finding a lactation consultant that you're like, oh, I think I like that like they seem like they were my vibe. You can meet prenatally. If your insurance is going to cover lactation care, they're going to cover your prenatal visit. We'd like to see you around your 30-ish to 34-ish weeks is the sweet spot, 28 to 34 maybe. And so we do prenatal visits, and then we carry it over to newborn home visits and come and help you use your space and figure out your house for what feeding feels like and looks like. We also have an office. And so we really, the whole spectrum of, what would you add to that?
In addition to feeding your baby at the breast, we can also help navigate pumping and bottle feeding. And Angela can help a lot with body work. I don't have special training in that as much as Angela now that she has her massage certification, but helping babies feel basic, comfortable in their
CST knowledge. We did go to a
craniosacral therapy.
Craniosacral. We went and did a weekend workshop together. Yeah. And I've done a couple workshops on that too. So it is like we bring our own unique things to it. But yeah, it's like first latch. And throughout the duration of this podcast and anytime I'm talking about what we do and we talk about lactation care, that's really just human milk feeding your baby. No matter the device, if it's your body that we're using or a bottle, or if it's some of your milk and some formula or donor milk or whatever, we just support that whole feeding journey. So just to clarify, it's not all about obviously latching and feeding at the breast, because that isn't what some families want. And for some families, they just have a different journey than that. And so we support all of it.
All the feeding.
All the things. Solid food introduction too.
Yeah. So I know when I was pregnant with my first baby, if I had heard, oh, you can go see a lactation consultant at 30 to 34 weeks, I would have been like, why? What are we going to do?
Yeah.
So that's truly a question I would have had. And I can only imagine many other first-time moms might have that question.
Yeah.
How would you respond?
I think that prenatal visit is so special in finding if you're vibing with that person. And I think that some questions that you may not have thought about of like what feeding is even going to look like, because I think a lot of families are like, I want to breastfeed, but what that breastfeeding is going to actually look like, or I want to give my baby breast milk. But have you thought about it? Does that mean at the breast only? Do you want to feed bottles too? How do you feel about combo feeding? We can help like solicit information from you that you may not even realize that you should have thought of that. And also, if things are tricky, postpartum, hormones are raging, there's so many things going on, you have a crying baby, you're emotional, it's like a whole thing, and it's really hard to absorb knowledge in that state. So having a foundational basis, and even at 28 weeks, birth is so far apart and you're still excited for your pregnancy and you're really it's crazy how many people are just focused on birth, which is a huge component of it. And that feeds a lot into feeding, is having a birth that you can look back on and view as successful, of what success means to you, and really trusting your body. But having that exposure before you're in the moment and in the thick of it, and have the added emotions and the added hormones and all the things, I think is like super helpful.
Yeah, I'll tack on that if you were having a baby and it's your first baby or your fifth, more of my prenatal appointments are with parents that have had a baby or two or three or five.
Yeah.
And they're like, you know what, that sucked. And I don't want to do that again. But I do want to do that again, but just not that.
But like better.
And so prenatal appointments really, like, everybody goes into something with an agenda. My goal is to get whatever the parent needs out of that, right? Do they have anxiety because everyone keeps talking about how their milk disappears at 3 months, or that their milk never comes in, or all of these things? Let's talk about those anxieties. Let's give you evidence-based information and education around you can navigate that, like why we don't need to be fearful of those things. So it really is like a one-on-one prenatal education. We geek out a little bit on the science of milk production and latching and all of that. But then we give you, I always tell families, this is not a read all at once email, but after our visits, because people are tired and we are going over a lot of information, and we do our best to not overwhelm people. And one of the tools that we use is a follow-up, like a post-visit recap. And so if you come see me prenatally, you're going to have a post-visit recap to save on your phone that's going to have a cutesy little thing that talks about what kind of poop should we be expecting in those first couple of days? What happens when your milk comes in, and how can you help your body be comfortable? All the way down to just like tips and tricks of, hey, while you're still pregnant and you're prepping and planning, make a list of things around the house that would be helpful and tack it to the fridge so that when someone comes over and says, how can we help? All you got to do is point them to the list instead of having to think about it. So we talk about it's so much more than just breastfeeding. It's about, what are you anxious about? What are your goals?
What have you heard?
Yeah, what have you heard that's making you like, I'm going to give this a try, but I'm not so sure. It's really just getting curious about what their goals are and where their anxiety lies about it, and what kind of evidence-based and education and support can we fill in to reduce the nerves and to help them feel like they've got their game plan. Because one of my favorite statistics is that when it comes to breastfeeding success, it is like the number one indicator of breastfeeding success is the parent's belief that they're able to do it. And we get that confidence and that belief in ourselves and our body through education and through understanding how things work. And so that's really the goal of prenatal visits, is to help them gain that confidence to where they're like, it might be tricky, but I have resources and I know what's typical normal and what's maybe common but not normal. And
I love that. It's so similar to what we do in the doula world, and midwives say this as well. A big part of our job prenatally is to build trust in your own body in preparation for birth, but also in preparation for breastfeeding. If that's something that you'd like to do. Yeah, there's so much to instill in parents who are doing it for the first time. But I think that's so interesting too, that people are coming to you afterwards knowing now, okay, I thought, because I think there's a huge narrative in our mind sometimes. We're like, oh, it's natural, so it will be easy.
Yeah. And it's like biologically programmed in the biologically typical way to feed a human, sure. But your baby's got to learn. You've got to learn. There's lots of messy, muddy layers of society and how we have been educated about this and the lore that's been handed down. People love to share their horror stories. Yes. That's true for birth. That's true for so many things. And it is so true for lactation.
And the reality of, is this typical? Is this expected? Versus is this a red flag or a pink flag or something I should be thinking on more?
Yeah.
I just think a lot of times people in general just don't know exactly what that newborn, especially those first few days, are going to look like, and like how tired I'm going to be and those kinds of things. So just instilling the confidence and the trust. I think the trust piece is huge, especially when somebody has a really strong vision for their birth and then the path strays, and then getting back to that that mistrust can pour over into feeding. Big time. Getting back grounded into my body. I can do hard things. My body was built for this. I can do this. I can trust that this can be different, or this is where our path can come together if it kind of went astray in the birthing process.
Even to have support when it truly does go astray, because we are not magicians. That we can support you and we can absolutely help navigate when things have gotten really tricky. But there are absolutely times that you had this beautiful, glowing vision of what feeding your baby was going to look like, and then it doesn't look like that for whatever reason. And I think a lot of what Chelsea and I do, honestly, is holding space for families and, just being there, being the vessel that they can pour into. We're not therapists, but give us all your ick of what's going on with breastfeeding, and we can be that space to hold that and help you navigate what feels good to you.
That's wonderful. So it sounds like you've got your groups that people can come to, and you've got appointments one-on-one where they're in their office, and you go to their home.
Usually home visits are primarily for 4-ish weeks and under, as new babes. But we go to homes because that's really important to figure out your space. And a lot of us, if you just had a baby, we serve a vast variety of how people have their babies, but a lot of our families give birth at home. And so, they want us to come to them, and we love going and seeing newborn squishes. I feel like it's holy, and it's such an honor to get invited into that space.
Yes, absolutely. And I heard you mention you were getting Medicaid approved. So I'd love if you can speak to, is this covered by insurance? To what extent?
Yeah.
Have you accepted Medicaid? What does that look like at your practice?
I would say last year when I ran through numbers, 85% of our families were covered by insurance. And so we are in network with a vast variety: United Healthcare, Aetna, Medicaid, and that can be, lactation's interesting when it comes, not to get on a business side of it, but lactation is interesting because we have two patients, when we serve a family, I chart on the baby, I chart on the mom, I talk to the OB and the midwife, I talk to the pediatrician.
Yeah.
I think that was one of the things.
Two of them together.
Yeah. And then and how they work in sync, as we call it, a dyad in lactation. And Chelsea can vouch to the amount of charting that we that we do.
And the annoyance of the insurance. I mean,
Yeah.
The Affordable Care Act guaranteed insurance coverage for lactation, but the reality of that and the commercial insurers, there's a lot of intricacy too. But oftentimes commercial insurance will cover lactation, and usually it's up to 6-ish visits.
Okay, I was going to ask if there's a range.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's really only with one provider, one insurance company. So I will say, not a lot of families are going to need beyond 6 visits. And sometimes when we fall into that, maybe something super tricky, but often it's like, it feels really good to have you come over and tell me that this is working
hang out with
really
me.
well.
Yeah,
And I get that. One of the hills I will stand on is that as people that are working with postpartum families, and really since lactation's my vein, like lactation specifically, is to really care and take really good care of a parent's confidence. Because we do come in and we're like, well, like maybe there's oral dysfunction, meaning your baby doesn't really understand how to suckle and we need to teach them, or maybe they have ties, or maybe you do need to remove a little bit more milk and support your milk production in your body to meet your baby's needs. There's a lot of things that feel like judgment. They could feel like judgment, right? When you're tired and you just want this so bad, and then someone's layering on all the reasons why it's not happening. And so I'm like the forefront of my mind of like, how do we keep this parent feeling confident in their journey? How do we protect that for them? Going back to confidence is how we see success in feeding journeys. It's very multifaceted, but to go back to your insurance, most people are covered under insurance. And you can always call your carrier and ask who they cover and peek around. But we do, like I said, last year it was like 85% of our families that we saw. And we saw over 400 families last year.
That's incredible.
And they all had insurance and coverage, 85% of them.
Wow.
You can self-pay. We can give you super bills, which is just a fancy receipt with all the insurance language that you can send to your insurance carrier. And I've heard they're really great about reimbursing those too. There's definitely less barrier financially than there used to be.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
And did you say that you do accept Medicaid?
We do accept Medicaid.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that was something really important to me. I think I was the first lactation consultant in our area to accept Medicaid. And it was like I could have beat my head against the wall trying to go through their application process. And it's a bit archaic, but it was just really important to me to have that access to care outside of your traditional OB clinic, right?
Yeah.
Because that was really who was able to bill those policies, were somebody that was billing underneath maybe your physician that was in network with Medicaid.
Can you speak to the benefit to coming to your practice, your business, versus going to their OB or pediatrician? What's the difference in care, would you say?
Time.
Time.
I think time. Because in a traditional medical setting, they have an allotted amount of time. And generally speaking, I would say it's probably 30 minutes.
Yeah, I think
Maybe an
lactation
hour.
care, they might have a little bit more time. Like piggybacking on when I said you can be the same letters behind your name and a totally different provider. Yeah. When you work at a big corporation, you work the way that corporation believes. That's true for our hospital systems, our large pediatric offices. I work for myself. And so I am very mindful of evidence-based practice, and I want the science to be there, but the lived experience too also is sometimes science hasn't caught up with what is truly happening with families. And not to go on about spicy things in women's health care.
Let's hear it. Let's get
sometimes-
spicy.
Sometimes we are a little delayed in getting actual great evidence behind women and babies' health care, especially when it comes to birth and breastfeeding. And so in our practice, we have the ability to, I don't want to say think for ourselves, but we have the ability to think for ourselves. And there's great care out there, and we need all of it, right? You're never going to hear me bashing another lactation consultant or a different type of practice. We need everybody. Yeah. We need everybody. There are, I think, the most recent statistic, I'm going to butcher this, somewhere in the 30-ish thousand IBCLCs, period, across the world.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And there are a whole lot of babies being born. And so we need everybody to do this care. But coming to my clinic and seeing Chelsea or I, is vastly different. We have this beautiful little she shed that it's calm and it's super inviting and it's
less medical feeling.
Yeah, I truly don't want, we don't wear scrubs, although sometimes I wear scrub pants because they're basically sweatpants.
Yeah, like pajamas.
Easy to wash.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
But I don't want it to feel, we are part of your care team and I do believe we are medical providers, but I don't want it to feel that way. I don't want to medicalize it. I want it to feel like your big sisters that are helping you breastfeed.
And what, from the big sister perspective, what is your specific philosophy on body feeding that you're bringing to a visit?
Like, my business is 5 years old now. So 5 years ago, coming into this, pregnant with my third, had breastfed 2 kids. I had a lot of my lived experience in my head. And 5 years ago to now, I'm like a vastly different human when it comes to providing care for families. And really my philosophy is, I don't care how you feed your baby. I want you to feel held. And I want your baby to be meeting its nutritional needs that it needs, however that happens. And for you to be able to look back on your journeys without grief. Because one of the things that is so true in how you feed your baby, and birth probably as well, is that when things go differently than you expected, and so you are forced to, maybe it's formula feed because your milk wasn't abundant enough to meet your baby's needs, or your baby couldn't latch and so now we're bottle feeding. Whatever it is that pivoted your journey from what you wanted it to be, there is a deep grief and sadness that happens in that family, and honestly in that mom and baby dyad, in the whole family unit. And my philosophy is we just support. We just have to help families navigate that if it's different than so that when they look back, they can go, man, I tried everything. I did all the things. And this was just our journey.
Yeah.
So if that's a philosophy, that's mine.
Yeah. I think meeting them where they're at and going back to the prenatal visit and looking at how do you want this experience to be? Is it important for you for most of the nutrition to come at the breast? Is the breast milk the most important part? Is it really truly an equal combination? Because those are things that I never really thought about. And again, the 7 year ago me now, when I had my daughter, till now, nobody really said to me, well, is the breastfeeding relationship important? Hopefully you can have it all. You can have the breastfeeding relationship. You can give your baby the breast milk and it just works perfectly. But maybe if it's not working well, can you compartmentalize a little bit of is it more important to you, the breastfeeding relationship, or is the breast milk the really important part? And I don't think a lot of people think about it like that.
Yeah.
And so my philosophy is what is important to you? Because what's important to me doesn't matter, and really trying to remove my own personal experience, my own bias from it. Obviously, that's what drew me to this, but I can support you. However, if you can tell me how I can support you and what's important to you and how you can feel good about this at the end of the day. And it feels hard because it is hard, but we can do hard things.
Yeah.
And creating space too there's so much noise in motherhood and parenthood as a blanket, but especially in new parenthood and in finding your footing in what is this new family system, whether you're just added a baby or it's your first baby, look like. There's so much noise around how we feed our baby, what's right, what's wrong, what should we be doing for comforting, what shouldn't we be doing. We shouldn't and should all over people, right? And it's like a curse word, basically. Don't should on people. And so finding the ability to create quiet where a family can actually listen to what they want and support from that place. And that's a tricky thing to do because the world's noisy. And so finding that soft place to land where somebody can actually listen to their inside voice. What do you actually want?
Yeah.
And let's work to support that.
To that end, I know you mentioned you served over 400 families last year.
Yeah.
Do you see some common themes from people coming in, common issues, common problems that they're coming to you with? And I know it's very nuanced, and what works for different people works for different people, but what are some common issues you see and how do you typically address them?
The most common is supply related, I would say, but it
is very eating enough?
Are
is
they
my milk
getting
supply enough?
Am I doing this right? is it supposed to be
Discomfort
this
in
often?
latching.
Yeah, is it supposed to hurt?
Yeah.
My baby's feeding 10 times a day. Is that normal?
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of that is the first 2 weeks, right? In the first 2 weeks, the common themes are going to be like, why do my nipples hurt? Or why do they look like hamburger? Because I have a pariah baby. And how do we undo that? Because that's a hard no. And maybe they've lost more than 10%. All babies lose weight at birth. It's inflated if we've got a long induction and intrapartum fluids and all of those things. And maybe we could look at a 24-hour wait. But like all babies lose a little bit of weight while they're waiting for mom's milk to come in, which I'll air quote that because you literally start making breast milk at 14 to 16 weeks of pregnancy. So you have milk when your baby's born, no matter when they're born. But that's that first couple weeks of how do we do this? And is this enough? My boobs are really uncomfortable. Maybe you've never done this before because it's first time. And then I would say we had a lot of families first 2 weeks. What is happening? Please come save me. And then a lot of families around the 6th week mark is honestly, if I had to put a stamp in it when we see families most commonly, it's the 6 to 8 weeks. It wasn't great breastfeeding up until now, but it was like working okay. We only cried a little bit and babies were gaining enough or maybe like a rock star or whatever, but then around 6 to 8 weeks, it all goes to like hell. And they're like, what happened? My baby is like on and off the boob. My milk supply is gone. We did our 2-month weight check with our well baby visit and they're totally off their chart. Yeah, that is a really common time for families to seek support is at 6 to 8 weeks. And not to go deep rabbit hole, but for the first 6 weeks of life, the parent has, with appropriate stimulation to their body, i.e. removing milk, whether it's a baby or a pump or a hand, if they have the appropriate stimulation, they have an abundant amount of milk. And our biohack as the parent is to fire hose our baby, not shoot it across the room, but pretty forcefully, and it's a hormonal push of milk production at that moment. And that's our hack to help our baby learn and us learn how to feed. And our baby's biohack, if you will, is that for the first 6 weeks, really all the way to 16 weeks, but very strongly, the first 6 weeks, babies are very reflexive and they feed in a neurological pattern. Their brain takes over and makes them feed. You put a nipple up to the roof of their mouth, they are going to suck because it's reflexive. And that can carry families over and through a lot of oral dysfunction. Ties can be missed. Maybe mom has such a good supply that baby literally just hangs out there. They look like they're attached. There's never any nipple pain going on. But they're just attached and drinking. And even a bucket would gain weight if mom just poured milk into it, right? Yeah. But then her milk supply regulates. We're not doing that hormonal push. And like all things are like, it was okay and now it's awful. And so that would be, I would say, first 2 weeks, learning curves. And then around that, what is happening moment around 6 to 8 weeks is the vast bulk of when we meet families.
Yeah.
Wow, that's really interesting.
Or going back to work. Where, this is oftentimes bottle exposure
refusals.
Early, and then they're like, oh, my baby did the bottle, and then time to go back to work at that 10 to 12 week mark, and now my baby won't take a bottle. What's going on? From
if you're pregnant and you're watching this, give your baby a bottle somewhere around 3-ish weeks of life, okay? And then continue to do that 2 to 3 times a week, henceforth, and your baby can keep that skill set. But it goes back to that reflexive sucking.
Yeah.
And we need to learn that skill. It's different than a breast. And so we need to learn that skill. Then we need to keep that skill set as our reflex to suck goes away.
Wow, that's gold.
Yeah,
that's really
that's the goal. That's the podcast. We're done.
But you've already made a huge impact to everyone watching. That's incredible. Yeah, I wish I had heard that.
Yeah. Me too.
Yeah.
Same.
Just out here being the women that we needed. You know?
I exactly.
Where was I when I needed?
Where was I when I needed?
How many, one of my favorite things in teaching, I taught at the hospital systems for a long time, and sometimes the mom of the new mom would show up to class with her daughter and sit through breastfeeding education in 2021 when she had her babies in the 80s. And I love getting the opportunity to teach. I love teaching, but to teach to the generation that didn't have support, because lactation consultants became a thing in 1985 with a grant from the La Leche League, which the Leche League was in the 50s. They're still around. I was a leader at the Leche League in our area for a long time, and now passed it on to another Chelsea, and they take on and do groups. But I love the grandmothers that are like, where were you? Like everything about my feeding journey 30 years ago just clicked.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, that's got to speak to that grief that comes along. You can let that go, because that was just the system letting you down.
Yeah.
The system wasn't a system yet, and it failed you.
Yes. Oh my goodness. Is there anything that you wish people would ask you?
Yeah, our little nuggets of gold.
Yeah, I think we
More nuggets?
Yeah, the bottle thing. I wish that we educated people better. We are never taught how bodies make milk. And there's a whole hormonal cascade that has to happen and that we can be in charge of no matter how we birth if we understand what's happening. And so I wish people sought education. And education, it's again, you can have the same letters behind your name, but you're going to get different things. And so seeking education that truly trusts, we can trust people with science. We don't have to overwhelm them. We can put it down to common language and help people understand how their body works. I wish people understand how milk was made. That would be my number one thing. And I wish that people knew it doesn't have to be an emergency to come see us.
And it's another
We
thing.
love when it's not an emergency.
Yeah, I prefer to see them. As
When you're
early.
like, feel quite right. I just want a little support.
And that it's okay to change your mind. I think that's important for people to know, that it's okay to, we use the word pivot a lot. You're not quitting and you're not giving up, but sometimes that's part of the journey, is now you have the information and you have the baby that you have and you have your body, and it's okay to change your mind. Don't change it to a permanent thing on your hardest day. The saying, never quit on your hardest day, but it's okay if you have to change your mind to meet your mental health needs or whatever else it is, that change, it's okay.
Yeah. No, I love.
I think two things can be true, right? We can have all this wonderful science of what human milk provides for us as a species, for our health, and support the heck out of families however they want to feed their baby.
You guys, how can the people find you?
Mostly like old school way. We have a website, motherhooduntamed.com. We have Instagram, Motherhood Untamed Lactation. If you need to schedule an appointment, go through the website. You can text us, call us, or reach out via that. Or we have online scheduling as well if it's 3 o'clock in the morning and you just need to get on the schedule. But for funsy little tips and tricks, the Instagram's going to be where it is.
And physically, if you're looking for us, we host a volunteer donation-based group on the first and third Thursdays of the month at a chiropractor office on Harmony and College. So that's a great way to come out and meet community, other people in the thick of it in similar phases of life. So that's a good way to physically connect with us. And then also we have a physical location at Drake and LeMay. Usually when we're there, we're with families, so it's not like a pop-in, but if you're looking for our physical location or wondering where we're at in the world physically, we're
You
kind
might
of in
see
Midtown.
my van too. My van has boobs all over it.
It's sitting outside the studio.
If you see it, just wave. That's me.
Oh, that's wonderful. I love that group. I refer people there all the time. Thank you both so much for hosting it. And thank you so much for coming on today.
Thank you for having us. This was so fun. Thank you
you.
for doing this for our community.
Absolutely. Thank you. It's my pleasure.
Yeah.